The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its host, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss the murder in your family on this podcast, please be sure to visit themurderinmyfamily.com for more information. You can support this podcast by visiting patreon.com/themurderinmyfamily. This episode may contain unsettling material or subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Thank you for joining me for episode 61 of The Murder in My Family. I'm your host, Mike Morford. In this episode, we'll be discussing the case of Karen Marchioni, a 41-year-old mother who was savagely attacked and stabbed inside her home just 2 days after her birthday. She was able to call 911, but didn't survive her injuries. And despite a suspect being named by police, no one's been arrested for her murder. We'll jump into this case after some quick housekeeping. Independent podcasts like this one depend on word of mouth to bring in new listeners. So if you find that you enjoy this podcast, please take a minute to rate and review it wherever you listen to your podcast. And be sure to introduce a friend to the podcast and invite them to listen. With your help, the show can continue to grow and reach new audience. To learn more about the show or the cases we discuss, please visit themurderinmyfamily.com. You can also find us on Twitter with the handle @MurderMyFam, or by searching for the Murder in My Family podcast on Facebook. If you'd like to support the show through a Patreon donation, it's always appreciated, and you can do so by visiting patreon.com/themurderinmyfamily. Benefits of supporting the show on Patreon include early access to ad-free episodes of the show, plus bonus content not heard in regular episodes. Support may also include thank you cards, stickers, and more. If you prefer to, you can also support the show through a PayPal donation by visiting paypal.me/themurderinmyfamily. In each episode, I'll give shoutouts to any new supporters. In this episode, I'd like to thank Catherine Haynes, and thank you to all of the supporters that generously donate to help keep the show growing and improving. One more note before we get started. Please consider supporting any of the sponsors that you hear on The Murder in My Family, the way that those sponsors support the show. It's with our sponsor support that the show can go on and continue to provide a platform to share these stories with you in every episode. Thank you, and now on with the show. Karen Marchioni was born in Waltham, Massachusetts on October 6, 1960, to Ronald and Carol Marchioni. She has a sister named Lynn and a brother named Mark. Karen and her family moved to Framingham, Massachusetts when she was 4 years old. She attended St. Bridget's Grammar School and graduated from Framingham North High School in 1978. In 1980, Karen married Stephen Case, and she found work as a secretary. The couple had one daughter together, Jennifer, born in 1987. But not long after, Karen and Stephen divorced in 1990, but they remained on good terms. Karen was a huge animal lover, and in May 1986, she founded Framingham's Animal Shelter, originally keeping stray animals in the attic of her home. She also visited with the elderly on a regular basis, and was a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints in Marlborough. Following her divorce, Karen struggled with alcohol and drug abuse, and she went to rehab numerous times. She was also in abusive relationships, including one marriage. In October 2000, Karen married Stephen Henderson, who was 39 years old. The marriage was volatile right from the start, and the two split up a month later. Afterwards, Karen called police to her home 6 times. Stephen was convicted of 2 counts of assault and battery for pushing Karen over a couch and into a stove on October 29, 2000. But the harassment and abuse didn't end there. Police were called to Karen's home 4 more times on domestic incidents. Finally, Stephen Henderson was arrested on charges of violating a restraining order and violating parole, and he was sentenced to jail time. Once he was in jail, Karen immediately started plans for divorce. Living alone, Karen enjoyed the visit she had with her daughter Jennifer, She was also active in the church. But Karen's struggles continued, and she had a few legal problems. In May of 2001, she was charged with falsifying a prescription for the painkiller Ibuprofen at the Osco drugstore in Ashland, and she was scheduled to go on trial November 30th, 2001. But Karen Marchioni never made it to trial. On Saturday, October 6, 2001, Karen's family threw a large birthday party to celebrate her 41st birthday. Her daughter, Jennifer, gave her flowers, and Karen's mother, Carol, cooked Karen's favorite vegetarian dishes, eggplant parm and spinach lasagna. The next day, Sunday, Carol and Karen's sister Lynn delivered birthday gifts to Karen at her home. That was the last time they saw her alive. The following morning, Monday, October 8th, at around 11 a.m., Karen locked herself in the bathroom of her Nelson Street home and dialed 911. She told the operator she had been attacked. When police arrived, they found Karen in the bathroom lying in a pool of blood, and she was suffering from multiple stab wounds to her face and neck. It was clear to see that she was the victim of a vicious attack. Karen was airlifted to the University of Massachusetts Medical Center in Worcester, where she succumbed to her injuries at 1 p.m., before ever being able to relay any information to investigators. An hour later, the state police called Carol Marchioni to inform them that her daughter Karen was dead. Karen's murder was Framingham's first murder since July 2000, and it stumped investigators right from the beginning. Karen's husband Stephen Henderson was ruled out immediately because he was still in jail at the time of the attack. When Karen's ex-husband Stephen Case found out that Karen had been murdered, he struggled with how he was going to break the news to their 14-year-old daughter, but eventually was able to share the heartbreaking news with her, and Jennifer was devastated. Stephen and Jennifer resided right around the corner from Karen, and something troubling had happened just a few days before Karen's murder. Karen showed up at their house and said she was afraid to go home, although she didn't explain why. But apparently, neighbors had seen strangers in Karen's yard shortly before she was murdered, and perhaps she was uneasy about them. Since Karen's murder happened just a few weeks after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, police were really busy, which may have hindered the investigation. In July 2005, police arrested a man named Aaron Sutton on charges of trying to kill his girlfriend. The Metro West Daily News reported that a Framingham police lieutenant told the newspaper police had identified Sutton as a suspect in Karen's murder. But he's never been charged in connection with it, and police didn't elaborate on why he was a suspect. Sutton has been arrested numerous times since 2005. In one arrest in 2013, he was charged with 2 counts of assault and battery, and shoplifting over $100 worth of goods. Some of the arrests were for outstanding warrants. In October 2016, near the 15th anniversary of Karen's murder, police once again arrested Sutton, who was homeless by this point. This time he was arrested on 2 counts of distributing heroin. Karen's murder remains unsolved, but police say the investigation is still open. They're still holding Karen's fake fingernail as evidence. Karen's family doesn't believe her murder was random, although the motive for it is unclear to them. Going through her teenage years and entering adulthood without her mom was rough for Jennifer Case, and she's still searching for justice for Karen almost 2 decades later. Jennifer sat down with me to discuss her mom's murder and her struggles surrounding the case. That conversation is coming up in just a moment. Is there something that interferes with your happiness or is preventing you from achieving your goals? If so, BetterHelp Online Counseling is there for you. You can connect with your professional counselor in a safe and private online environment. It's so convenient. You can now get help on your own time and at your own pace. You can schedule secure video or phone sessions, plus chat and text with your therapist. Licensed professional counselors are available who are specialized in anger issues, depression, stress, anxiety, and so much more. Anything you share is confidential. If you're not happy with your counselor for any reason, you can request a new one at any time for no additional charge. There are 3,000 U.S. licensed therapists across all 50 states, and BetterHelp is available worldwide. Start communicating in under 24 hours. BetterHelp is available on desktop, mobile web, Android, and iOS apps. BetterHelp isn't a crisis line, but it is secure, convenient, and professional, and financial aid is available for those who qualify. If you're a regular listener of this show, then you know that sometimes we all have a lot to deal with, and BetterHelp can help you through those times. Best of all, it's a truly affordable option. The Murder My Family listeners get 10% off your first month with discount code FAMILY. So why not get started today? Go to BetterHelp.com/family. Simply fill out a questionnaire to help them assess your needs and get matched with a counselor you'll love. That's BetterHelp.com/family. Hi, Jennifer, and thanks for coming on to discuss your mom's case with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
You were just 14 years old when your mom was killed. How hard was her murder on you? I think any teen that loses a parent has a lot to deal with, but to lose a parent in such a horrible and tragic way, was that especially difficult for you?
Honestly, I think at that age was probably one of the worst times that could have happened. Not that there would have been a good time, but especially as a girl, being 14 and only about a month into my freshman year of high school, it was really difficult losing her in that way and just so abruptly. We obviously never saw something like that coming, and my parents were divorced at the time, but I think it really put my dad in this tough survival mode kind of with me, and now all of the things that he didn't really count on having to go through with me and talk to me about and teach me, he now had to step up and kind of play both parents. And also just going into high school, having that reputation, and it was just definitely a really tough time.
And were you and your mom pretty close?
We were. My dad had full custody, but I still would sleep over my mom's house probably like 3 times a week, typically. I'm an only child, so she was always really involved in my life. I saw her all the time. We were definitely very close.
So losing that relationship, as you mentioned, it probably is not easy anytime, but going into high school and you're getting older, you're going to need advice for life after school and stuff. Did you really miss out on that by not having her in your life at that point?
I think I missed out, and at the same time, it was just really different than what I had always expected it to be. It sounds kind of cliche maybe, but you start to think about major milestones that she's missing as you're going through them. I mean, high school prom and graduation and things like that. And even after college, I took some time off and I went back and I went to grad school, and I actually just finished. I got my master's, and it's like one of those things that I know she's proud of me for now, but I think she would have been so proud to see in the moment. And I just really would have loved to have had her there. And thinking about it just kind of makes you more angry that someone is responsible for taking that away from you. It's not just a sickness, and there's somebody specific to blame, and I don't know who that person is. I guess nobody knows who the person is except the person who did it, but someone took all of those experiences away from me.
And that's what's tragic about these kind of cases. There's the victim, obviously, that dies, but there's the people in their life that miss out on that, and their lives are forever altered and changed, and they miss out on those milestones like you just mentioned.
Definitely. I mean, both of her parents lost their child, and that must have been horrible for them. I can't imagine what they must have gone through. And again, this was also unexpected, and one day she's there, and then all of a sudden she's not. And it just must have been really hard for them to deal with. For me, she had 2 siblings, so they had to go through that. I mean, even my dad, they were divorced, but that was the mother of his child. They were married for a long time, and he loves her very much, and that must have just been so hard for him.
If you would, can you tell us a little bit about your mom, what kind of person she was, maybe some of your memories of her?
Yeah, so my mom was, I get a lot of things from her. She was a huge animal lover. My dad is too. I was raised kind of into like animal rights stuff and being a vegetarian before that was like really a big thing. So I've always like had pets and I've always volunteered at animal shelters, stuff like that. And she really like helped introduce me to just a really compassionate lifestyle that way. When she wasn't helping animals, she was helping people. She later in her life, she had fibromyalgia, so it made it really difficult for her to work full time. So she was doing some part-time work, but also she mainly was volunteering. So she would like take me with her a lot of the time to go to like senior living homes, stuff like that. Just even looking back on it, she was doing such sweet, kind-hearted things for people that she didn't owe anything to, and just out of the goodness of her heart. I mean, we would go, I was like 13 years old, going to these senior homes and painting like ladies' nails, and we would be like reading letters from their loved ones to them if they couldn't read or things like that. And then also she loved music. She was always so much fun to be around, and even my friends would say the same thing. Like, she was always kind of one of the fun moms, and she was just super down to earth. I grew up always knowing that she did have addiction problems. Her and my dad never really hid that from me. They were pretty open about it. And so I knew that that was a big part of her life, but honestly, I never found that it got in the way of her love for me or for being a mom. I think when she was really having some times in her life where she was struggling some more, then those were the times that my grandparents or my dad or other family members would kind of step up, and they would be with me more during those times. But again, I always knew how much she loved me and cared for me and how much she was there.
So you had a support system in place for when she was battling her demons, that you had someone that could step in and help keep you occupied and take care of you.
Definitely. My dad is such a good dad. I mean, he's honestly my best friend, and he has been for most of my life. He really did the best with what he had, and I think he really stepped up. And like I said, even before she died, he kind of had to play both parents sometimes, and he did a great job at that. And then also I had both of her parents were around until recently. They were such good grandparents. I was with them all the time. I was with my dad's side of the family a lot. And again, I'm an only child, so I kind of didn't have the company of siblings, which was good and bad. But I feel like I did always have a really good support system growing up.
And you mentioned that your mom and dad were divorced. How long were they divorced at the time she was killed?
So they split up when I was about 3, and she was killed when I was 14. So they got married really early. My mom was 18. My dad was like 20, 21 when they got married. They were together for about 10 years, I think. And then they ended up getting divorced when I was 3. So I was living primarily with my dad, but I still saw my mom really frequently.
And then your mom had remarried to a man, and he wound up going to prison. And at the time that your mom was killed, he was in prison. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So she married him not long before that. They were together for about a year. I think they were married for about a year. And it was just not a good relationship from the start. I think he had problems as well, and they were just really tumultuous. I guess I found out later, I knew some of this, but I found out more that there were a lot of like domestic situations. The police were called to the house several times. He was actually in jail for assaulting her and breaking a restraining order against her. And I guess that was like a pretty common occurrence in their marriage.
I would think as parents, your mom and your dad tried to keep that stuff from you, so you didn't see that or know about that too much when you were younger.
Yeah, exactly. Again, I think my parents were as open with me as they could be and as was appropriate for somebody of my age. So I definitely knew like things weren't great. I'm sure as many kids do in domestic situations, I would witness some stuff. I mean, he came home one night and it was a day I was sleeping over, and he's like banging on the door. She wouldn't let him in, and I was ignoring him because I was scared, but I guess I wasn't like frightened for my life, but I guess obviously I'm a little freaked out. And so I'm ignoring him, and then he crawls in through the window. He's like dripping blood all over the place from his face and everything. And she starts screaming at him. I'm 14 at the time, and my dad actually lived like one street over. So I honestly just got up and left, and I came to my dad's house, and that was kind of becoming a more common thing then, where like if they had stuff going on, I would honestly just leave and I would walk over here. I mean, it was 2 seconds away. So I was really fortunate that they lived close for that reason.
And at the time your mom was killed, he's in jail. And is it correct? I've read a couple places that she was planning on ending the marriage.
Yeah, they were. I don't know how far in the process they were, but I had always heard and was told that they were in the process of getting a divorce. I think he had been in jail for a month before she had been killed. So as far as I know, they didn't really have contact during that time. She had a restraining order against him anyways. And that, like I said, was the reason he was in jail, was for violating that.
Can you tell us a little bit about the last time you saw your mom at her 41st birthday party?
Yeah, honestly, it was such a great last memory, and I'm looking back on it now. I'm really grateful to have that. I know that I could have easily not been that lucky, but it was 2 days before she died. It was her birthday, and we went to my Nana's house, so her mom, and we had like a little family birthday party. It was like just a few of us, and my dad took me. I got her flowers, and I gave them to her, and I remember she was so happy, and we just all sat around. We had dinner. It was really fun. And then I was leaving. I said bye. I said, I love you. She said, I love you too. It was really nice. Especially, like I said, with somebody who struggles with addiction, there's going to be times in your life where you don't have the best interactions with them, and I'm really grateful that that wasn't one of those times, and it was just a really positive final experience.
So this was a normal, happy birthday party. Everything went well, nothing out of the ordinary, and your mom seemed fine at that point.
Yeah, she seemed great to me. She did, I found out later, she did go to my dad's house the night after that, I believe, which would have been the day before she was murdered. And she told him, and again, like they were still friendly. They still talked a lot. They were really good co-parents. So it wasn't weird for her to be going there to talk to him. And she had said that, I guess, the neighbors, so she lived in a 2-family home, and I guess the people upstairs had told her that they saw some people in the backyard, and she was like kind of freaked out by this, came over and told my dad, and she was like, I'm not sure what to do. Like, this is what's going on. I'm really scared. I don't want to go home. And my dad was like, okay, well, could you maybe sleep at your mom's house? And then you can call the police or do whatever you feel like you need to do in the morning, and like, we'll figure it out. And she was like, okay, you're right. Like, that's a good idea. I'll go do that. And so she left, and he was under the assumption that she did sleep at her mom's house, and she didn't, as we now know. And then the next morning is when everything happened.
And how did you find out that news?
So it was Columbus Day, so I didn't have school. I had actually slept over a friend's house the night before. And so I was out, I think I was at the mall and like the movies. for most of the day with my friend. And my dad came to pick us up at the mall like normal. He was going to drive us back to her house, drop her off. And I remember in the car, like, he seemed really quiet and off. And we were just like, me and my friend were being really goofy and we were being loud and teenagers. We turned the music up and he sounded really sad. And he was like, do you mind just turning it down? Like, I just have a really bad headache. And we were like, okay, no problem. And then we dropped my friend off. We didn't talk in the car on the way home. And we got home. And as soon as we walked in the house, my dad said, I have to tell you something. And I said, okay. And he said, your mom's been killed. And obviously I was in complete shock and I didn't even understand or process what he was saying. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, and for whatever reason, the first thing I thought was like a car accident or something. And I was like, well, where was it? Like, what happened? And he said, in her home. And the way he worded it, I knew it was weird. He said she had been killed. And I was like, well, like, what happened? And he didn't know at the time how she had been murdered. But he knew that she was murdered. And he said, somebody murdered her at home. And so we went to our church and it was like dinner time, but they let us go in and we kind of sat there and just were in like silence and prayed. And I just remember thinking the whole thing was so surreal. And I just definitely, looking back on it now, I was not processing anything. We went to my grandmother's house after that. Then we came home later that night and the police came and talked to us there. And then pretty much all week we were just at my grandmother's house a lot until the funeral.
So it was a blur, shock, sadness, all the typical things that anyone would go through after hearing that news, I guess.
Yeah, it was. And it was definitely it was just weird. Like, it just felt weird. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel real. I had a message on because this was like 2001, we still had like landlines and answering machines. And I had a message on my machine from her, like a totally normal one. Just, I don't even know. She was telling me something. And at the end was like, okay, I love you. Bye. And I kept that on my machine for years. And I would just listen to that all the time. And even just hearing her voice, how normal it sounded, it was such a shock. And then a week later, I was kind of just expected to just go back to school and go and do stuff that normal teenagers do. And that definitely didn't happen. I mean, I was going through the motions, but it affected my life forever and definitely in the immediate future, I guess.
And you mentioned, being in shock, going through the motions. We talked a little bit earlier about processing stuff at that age. Were you aware of what was going on as far as the police? You mentioned them coming to talk to you, coming to question you. Do you even remember what kind of things they asked or what they talked to you about at that point?
So, fortunately, my dad does. I don't entirely remember. He told me most of it, and I get like kind of flashbacks of like, oh yeah, okay, I guess I remember that conversation, but not entirely. But I guess basically they came here the night that it happened, and I was in my room, and they talked to my dad, and they were like, hey, we do want to ask her some questions because she kind of lived there and she would know some stuff, and would that be okay with you? And I guess my dad came in my room and he asked, and he was like, are you okay, like, talking to them? You can totally say no, like, we can do it later, but they do want to ask you some stuff, like, would that be okay? And again, I'm 14. I'm not like a little kid. So I was like, okay, like, I'll talk to them. So I did. They asked pretty standard stuff, like, was your mom with anyone new lately, or how did she seem? Did she seem like really stressed out, or was anything like different or off? Which honestly it wasn't. She seemed fine. Like, everything, again, to me seemed fine. I'm not sure if she was like hiding anything that was going on that she didn't want to expose me to. But aside from her coming to my dad's and being worried that night, she's pretty much okay. And honestly doing a lot better then than she had been in the past. She had recently found religion, and it was really helping her. I saw a big difference in her through her addictions, and even just she struggled with some depression and stuff, obviously, and having like a chronic pain condition didn't help with that. So I think her church was just really helpful in kind of pulling her out of that. And then that night, the police also did ask me if they could see my shoes, which obviously I thought was weird, and I was 14 and didn't get why they were asking that. And I was like, okay, but like, why? What are you looking for? And I guess they said to my dad, I don't know if this is in front of me or not, but I guess they said, we found a footprint on the bathroom door, and it looked like a small foot, so we just want to check and see if it could be hers, like nothing malicious, but like if she's just like fooling around, kick the door, whatever. So we looked, and they looked at my shoes, and they were like, okay, and that was that. They never asked for anyone else's. They never really said anything else about it. We found out later that pretty much it seemed like from the scene, everything happened in her bedroom and the bathroom. And I guess she had locked herself in the bathroom, and that's how she was able to call 911. So I would assume that whoever did this maybe tried to kick down the door or did it out of frustration or something. But it wasn't kicked in, so they didn't get in. So, but they never brought it up or talked about it again.
And that bathroom door, the footprint is an important clue, because we know that your mom managed to call 911 after being stabbed repeatedly. Did she provide any clues, as far as you know, in that call to police about who attacked her or anything else that was helpful for them?
So, unfortunately, no, as far as I know. Honestly, the police haven't been forthcoming with me about really much information. I've never heard that call. I don't want to. I don't know if I would even be able to. But everything I've read in like news articles and stuff like that has all said that all she could get out was that I've been stabbed. And it was in a pretty muffled, like hard to understand voice, I guess. So as far as I know, that's all she said. I mean, there were definitely some other clues that I just don't understand how they haven't led to anything at this point. It's really frustrating. Her fingernails were removed from one of her hands during the autopsy, and I didn't see her body at the funeral. I guess it was definitely closed casket, but some of my family members were able to see it before, and I didn't. But I was told that on one of her hands, like, all her nails were removed. And so, of course, I assumed, like, okay, maybe she scratched the person that did this. My mom was, like, kind of a fighter. Like, I would expect anyone to really try to do that. You're fighting for your life. I met with the police 4 years ago for the first time, and I asked them about that. They said that DNA was found. They didn't specify if that's where they found it or if it was something else, but they said it was found. And then they wouldn't tell me anything else about it. I asked if, like, okay, you ran it then maybe? Did you run it again? It's been almost 20 years. Like, who knows what's in your database now that might not have been then? And they said no, because there's a limited sample, and unless they're sure, they don't want to do that and risk, like, the possibility of getting someone at a trial or something like that.
So it seems like they do have something that might help solve the crime, but they're afraid to use it unless it's under the right circumstances.
Yeah, that's kind of basically what they were saying to me. I also asked them about fingerprints in the house. Again, I mean, it's so awful to think about, but someone came in and, like, did this, and she was stabbed, like, several times. It took time, and somebody was in there for a while, and I just don't understand how there could be no evidence, like, anywhere for anyone to find anything and link this to anyone. And so I asked about fingerprints, and they told me that there were no unidentified prints found in the house. But I mean, the more I think about that, that can't possibly be true because they never took my fingerprints. They never took my friends, my family, like even to exclude them. I mean, mine would have been all over the house. I was in there all the time and they don't have mine. So wouldn't that be unidentified? So it was just always really weird, like the way they handled it and the way they've talked to me about it since.
It seems like one of the biggest clues perhaps is the neighbor seeing some people or one or more people out in the yard. Were they able to provide any more details about that sighting?
Not that I know of. No one's ever spoken to me about that besides my dad. Yeah, I mean, I have the same question. I want to know, like, okay, well, were the neighbors asked about this? Like, could they describe these people? Was it more than one person? I mean, the way my dad remembers it is that my mom said people, but again, almost 20 years ago, he could be misremembering or she could have told it incorrectly. I don't know. But I just have so many questions about all of this and I'm getting no answers. So the only answer I ever get is that we're committed to working on the case and it continues to be an active investigation. And I just really don't see that, quite frankly.
And was there any sign that you know of, any sign of robbery or burglary or anything like that might have been the motive where she came in and interrupted something?
I definitely don't think so. It was 11 in the morning. She was supposed to be meeting people at her church. The police denied this to me. They said that there was no evidence she was getting ready to go to church, but I mean, everything I've always been told is that she was, and she was going to meet people and had this like specific meeting set up. So she also was wearing jewelry at the time and it was still on her. And I actually just recently got that back, from evidence. And I mean, she had like a watch, she had a necklace, some rings, earrings, stuff like that. And none of that was taken. She had a whole jewelry box. None of that was taken or touched. She had a bunch of like crystal, like figurine things she would collect, and all of those were still there. So not that I know of, no.
At the time that it happened, or since then, even up till now, have you or your family tossed around names of so-and-so maybe had a beef with her or was angry with her that they might have a motive to hurt her? Anyone that you could think of or your family could think of that might have had a reason to do this?
I mean, nobody specific, like no one came to mind instantly when this happened. Obviously, her estranged husband was in jail at the time, so he didn't do it, but do I rule out the possibility that he knows who did or knew who did? No. I've always wondered if maybe someone was after him and they couldn't get to him, so they went after his wife. Or maybe, I mean, honestly, she could have pissed someone off, and I don't know about it. I think that's a really difficult part about people who struggle with addiction is you kind of find out after they pass that there was maybe some stuff about their life that you weren't aware of, and it definitely could be something along those lines.
It wasn't until 2005 that investigators formally named the person of interest in your mom's murder, a man named Aaron Sutton. He was allegedly tried to kill his girlfriend. Did your family know of him at the time she was murdered? Were you familiar with this person?
No. So they actually didn't contact me or my family when this happened. We had never heard of this. And then it was in an article in the news. And I don't remember who. So I think my dad, somebody read this and was like, wait, what? Like, who is this? And none of us had ever heard of him. His picture was in there. He doesn't look familiar. I have no idea who this person is. And yeah, in the article it said that he was considered a prime suspect. They use those words. It's in quotes from Framingham Police. And again, nobody reached out to us. Nobody talked to us about it. So it's heartbreaking to think back on it. But like at the time, of course, we're all thinking like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like it's been 4 years. Like something maybe could happen now. Like we could maybe get some peace from all of this. And we're like almost waiting for a call from detectives, and nobody called. I'm sure someone in my family probably called them. I didn't. I mean, I was still a teenager at the time. And then years and years go by and nothing happens. And I've always just been really confused by this, because even like my mom aside, this man tried to allegedly kill his girlfriend and was arrested for kidnapping and all of this stuff. And then I look him up online and he gets arrested really frequently, and it's in the newspaper all the time with his name, his face, getting arrested, all pretty close to my house. I mean, it has nothing to do with me, I know, but it's really unsettling thinking that somebody that's doing, like, all of these are violent crimes, and someone that's out there doing all these crimes is not in jail, and I just don't understand why. And he is typically listed in the paper as being homeless. And when I had a meeting with some detectives and with the assistant DA a few years ago, I asked them about him. And I said, hey, like, this person was named as a prime suspect in 2005. Whatever happened with this? And they said to me, oh, we never said that. We never named him as a suspect. And I was like, okay, but you did, because it's in this article. And there's a specific detective being quoted in the article saying this. And they said, well, we never talked to the news. We didn't say that. And they kind of just shut it down. And then I expressed to them, like, I'm getting really frustrated at this point, like, during the meeting. And again, like, I'm older when I'm having this, so I can really, like, stand up for myself and be like, hey, like, what's going on? Because this is super unsettling that even if this person didn't kill my mom, you're telling me that somebody is out here roaming around Framingham doing all these violent things. Like, why are they not in jail? And they said, oh, well, we do know him, and he just has a really great lawyer. And first of all, this doesn't make sense to me. If he's homeless, how does he have such a great lawyer? And also, like, that's such an insensitive, horrible thing to say to the victim's daughter. Like, oh, yeah, this man might have killed your mom, but he has a great lawyer. And when I said I was worried for my safety, they were just, like, really condescending about it. During the whole meeting, I just felt like they kind of were scoffing at everything I was saying. Like, well, why would you be nervous? And making me feel, like, silly for being nervous or something, when honestly I have every right to be. I mean, what happened to her has a lifelong impact on people, and it happened in her own home. She was getting ready to go to church and she's killed in her home. Like, that's horrible. And I just don't understand how we're still here, and, like, I still have no information.
That's got to be a frustrating feeling when the people that are supposed to be on your team and supporting you and helping solve the case are condescending and not being clear with you, not being forthright about everything up to this point.
Oh, it's been so frustrating. I mean, the older I get to, the more I've, like, realized and kind of openly talked about how it's basically being re-traumatized. Like, what happened to her is so terrible, and for anyone to have to deal with that, especially at that age, is just really awful. And then on top of it, for the police and detectives and everyone to make you feel like they don't care, or that you're not important, or that you're bothering them, or even that she deserved it, is just, like, even worse. It's so traumatizing. And honestly, I've just felt so alone through all of this. Obviously, I have my dad and I have some other family members that have kind of been, like, trying to be on top of everything. But you're right. Like, the people that are supposed to be there looking out for you and looking out for the safety of the citizens of even where I live aren't doing their jobs, frankly. And it is really frustrating. I mean, like I said, they've never reached out to me. That one night we spoke, the night she died, I never heard from them again. I never got a follow-up phone call. No one ever checked in on me. No one ever even called to say, like, any updates or anything like that. And then, like, 15 years after that, I finally started to get mad, and I called them, and I was like, you know what? I want to have a meeting with these people. Like, I have questions I want to ask them, and I want to figure out what's going on. And I was irritated that nothing had been done, but I was still optimistic and hopeful. And they finally agreed to having a meeting. And I was in my head, I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, maybe I'll finally get some answers, or maybe I'll feel better when I walk out of this meeting. And I felt so much worse leaving that meeting. Like, it confirmed every bad thought that I had about the way this whole thing has been handled. I mean, they were just really terrible the whole meeting, honestly. And the first thing they said when I walked in, I asked them something about my mom, and the first thing they said before we even sat down was, well, you know that your mom lived a really risky lifestyle, right? And like, that's such an awful thing to say to anyone. First of all, yeah, I did know that. And two, that's not a reason for her to be murdered. Like, that's horrible, and it's victim blaming. And then when I say I feel afraid for my safety that somebody did this and is still like roaming free, they said, well, going on the news didn't help because I had been on the news like a week before that. And I was just made to feel really terrible, and I should not be made to feel that way when all I'm looking for is some peace and some justice for my mom, and to be able to, you never get closure and you never like fully move on, but at least to be able to feel a little bit safer and to feel like we can all kind of recover from this.
That's awful. I'm a big supporter of law enforcement, but I definitely hear from a lot of guests that I have on that they're not treated the way that you'd hope to see family members treated. And maybe the police need certain training of how to deal with people. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But it's very unfortunate when I hear someone sharing a similar account as you just did. And unfortunately, it happens more than people realize, that a lot of people go through that and almost feel like a second attack almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think it happens so fast too that like all of a sudden you're leaving a meeting and you feel victimized and you're like, wait, what just happened? Why do I feel this way? Why do I somehow feel guilty of doing anything? Like, I've done nothing wrong. And I felt like I was bothering them. And again, like, this is the first time I've even reached out to them in 15 years. And I don't know, I just got that impression. I mean, I'm a big supporter of law enforcement too, and I've just been so disappointed by all of this. I'm not one of these people that's like against the man and against law enforcement, but I had high hopes, and I guess I was just optimistic, and I've just been continually let down and disappointed. And I think the most frustrating thing about all of this is that they're continuing to leave it as an open investigation, which is great. And I hope that they do until they figure it out. But if they're not doing anything with the investigation, which I don't really think they are at this point, then at least close it so we can get some closure on some stuff. Like, I couldn't even get her jewelry for 15 years because it was evidence. And the fact that they even gave that to me kind of tells me that they've given up. But I mean, stuff like that, like her autopsy won't be released. There's probably details about things that I'll never know until the case is closed, because you ask them anything and their response is always, oh, well, it's an ongoing investigation and blah, blah, blah. So it's just hard. I mean, like I said, both of her parents have since passed away, and it's really heartbreaking to think that they lived the rest of their lives not knowing who did this and just always kind of being mentally tormented by that.
And then, you know, the fact they likely have DNA and they're not implementing, you know, the technologies that are solving these old cases. They need to do that. If they have a full profile, enough DNA to make a full profile, we've seen in the news every week, it seems like there's a suspect in a 20, 30, 40-year-old case getting arrested because of that DNA. They can't sit on that stuff like it's gold and just say, we're going to hold on to it forever. That's very frustrating that they're not realizing that.
Yeah, and I mean, even like re-interviewing people, it's been a long time. I mean, people might be more willing to talk now, or they might remember things that they didn't remember then, or they might, I don't know, like, there's always that one person that knows something. Like, somebody doesn't do this and no one knows in the world. Like, someone knows something. And I mean, I even asked them, have you re-interviewed all these people? Because they told me like all of her whereabouts the night before, which I don't know really how that correlates to what happened to her, but maybe it does and they're not telling me. I don't know. But okay, well, you have all this information about where she was. So the people you found that out from, like, have you talked to them since? And they said no. So, like, why not? Why are you not following up with these people? Why are you not redoing the DNA? Why are you not identifying fingerprints that are in the house? And why are you lying to me about it? Like, it can't be true that there were no unidentified prints. Again, like, you don't have all of our fingerprints. So, like, why even bother lie? Just, why aren't you running the prints? It makes no sense.
And it comes off as them looking lazy or incompetent, one of the two, or a combination of that. And that's not a good look. I can't imagine that's something they would want to be viewed as in that department. So maybe it's going to take a change of people at the top to make something happen finally. Short of that and their shortcomings, does it give you hope to see all those cases that are being solved after so long? Do you still hold out some hope that maybe your mom's case will one day be solved somehow?
I do. I mean, I've always, not for any particular reason, but I've always kind of had a feeling that hers could be the type of case where somebody ends up talking like 20 years later, and someone that maybe was afraid to at the time that it happened, or for whatever reason couldn't at that time. And that's kind of why I'm doing this. I mean, I'm really trying to get her case some more publicity and get more people listening to what happened to her, because it's really tragic and horrible and no one should ever go through that. But even more than that, like, that shouldn't be unsolved. Somebody needs to be responsible for this. They're out there, and I just really hope that the more people that hear her story, maybe there will be that one person that happens to hear this and knows something.
And hopefully, if they do know something, they do the right thing and come forward and provide information. Is there a reward in the case, do you know?
There is not, as far as I know.
And hopefully someone just does it because they want to do the right thing, and maybe they've got something that's been on their conscience this whole time, and they want to clear their conscience.
Yeah, that's basically what I've been hoping as well.
Well, Jennifer, I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your mom's story with us. I know you've been active in trying to bring attention to her case, and I really hope that you get the answers that you've been waiting for.
Thank you. And I just want to thank you so much for having me. It's so helpful, and it really does give me hope to get her story out there.
Thank you once again for joining me for this episode of The Murder of My Family. Please, if you have information about the murder of Karen Marchioni, you're asked to call the Massachusetts State Police assigned to the Middlesex County District Attorney's Office at 781-897-6600. Thanks goes out to Debbie Buck at TrueCrimeDiva.com for writing and research assistance in this episode. We'll be back here soon with an all-new episode of The Murder of My Family. As we wrap up, be sure to check out this preview of a new true crime podcast I think you'll enjoy. It's called Sooner State True Crime. And before you go, remember that every murder victim means something to somebody.
Hey, fellow Murder in My Family listeners. I'm Cece, the host of a new true crime podcast, Sooner State True Crime. As a born and bred Okie, I'll cover cases based in my wonderful home state of Oklahoma. The term Sooner actually refers to cheaters in the land run, the state's very first true crime. New episodes are released twice a month in Apple Podcasts and most podcast apps, or visit our website, anchor.fm/crimestate. to listen now. So come away with me to my crime state on the Sooner State True Crime Podcast. And please, stay Sooner safe out there, y'all.